This segment is going to focus on the popular culture of the 1920s and 1930s. Specifically, how did radio, movies, newspapers, and magazines promote challenges to traditional values? Part of the mass media was radio. This became the primary focus for home entertainment during the 1920s and 1930s. As families gathered around the family radio, they heard broadcast jazz music. They heard soap operas, action adventure shows, and they even heard the president speaking. It was Franklin Roosevelt who's going to use the fireside chats as a means to directly communicate with the people, to explain in ways that they understand his goals for the policies during the New Deal. Radio is going to be the dominant home entertainment for the next 30 years. The mass media also included movies. Movies provided information through newsreels. People could now see images and reports from around the country and even around the world. Movies also provided escapes from reality, so desperately needed in the 1930s. A person could spend the entire day in the movie theater watching cartoons and newsreels and feature films for only a few cents. Many different types of movies were very popular during the time. A person could see dramas, action adventures, superhero shows, comedies, horror, well, much like today. The mass media also is going to include newspapers and magazines, most often subscribed to by women, as you can see the titles of these magazines. Popular newspapers and magazines encourage national fads in fashion and in style. Muckraking journalism was still popular, and the mass media is going to help form and shape national cultural norms. Now, individuals can see what's going on around the United States, and it blends America into a tighter culture. And by shaping these cultural norms, it is becoming a nationalizing, that is, bring the nation together, a nationalizing agent. At the same time, mass media is going to bring challenges to traditional values, such as to traditional religions. Traditional religion was being challenged by science and also in the courts. Darwin's theory of evolution and the Scopes trial, where John Scopes, a teacher in Tennessee, was charged with the crime of teaching evolution to a biology class, which was technically against the law in Tennessee. By the end of the trial, the debate was not about the law. It was about science versus religion. And to the public, it seemed that science had won, even though John T. Scopes was found guilty. There were also challenges to the traditional roles of women. Flappers. Whoa. Flappers came to symbolize the rebelliousness and the youth. Many wanting to break from the example that had been set by women over the past 70 years. But also, the 19th Amendment is going to present a new challenge to the traditional role of women. Now, women are being brought into the public sphere as they took part in the political process. Another challenge to the traditional value was open immigration. That is, immigration from Europe that had peaked in the years leading up to the 1920s. But nativist or anti-immigrant feelings and fears continued to grow. Americans put a lot of pressure on Congress to do something about it. Well, in 1921, Congress responded with the Immigration Restriction Act. This significantly lowered the number of European immigrants that would be allowed into the United States each year. And these guys are going to make a comeback during this period of time as they protested immigration and expanded their hate speak to include many more groups. This is the rise of the new Ku Klux Klan. and it reached its record numbers in the 1920s and even included many elected officials. There were also some significant challenges to prohibition. That is, it seems our experiments with the 18th Amendment, which was supposed to stop people from drinking, was not going as was planned in the 1920s and the 1930s. We saw a significant rise in smuggling. Bootleggers who made and transported alcohol illegally. Speakeasies became very popular, where in most cities and towns, with a special password, a person could go into an establishment and drink and socialize. And of course, there was a rise of organized crime. That always seems to follow people's vices. Once booze was made illegal, its value grew, and huge profits could be made. The 18th Amendment was ultimately repealed in the early 1930s by the 21st Amendment. The mass media does serve as a nationalizing agent, as old values were going to be challenged on a national scale. Popular culture is going to reflect the prosperity of America during this time as we go through this other social transformation. And while we relished in the wealth, the prosperity, and the growth that was going on in America, we were not quite ready for what was looming around the corner. That, of course, the crash.